There are places on our planet that seem to exist outside of time. Silent sentinels standing guard over treacherous coastlines, their lonely vigil a testament to human ingenuity and our enduring battle with the sea. On a jagged finger of land, where the North Atlantic relentlessly batters the ancient rock, stands such a structure. Locals call it St. Jude's Point Lighthouse. From a distance, it appears as a classic, almost romantic, image. A stark white tower capped with a black lantern room, defiant against the gray sky and the churning dark water below. Every night, without fail, a brilliant beam of light erupts from its peak, cutting through the darkness in a precise rhythmic pattern. It sweeps across the waves, a silent, reassuring promise to any vessel navigating these perilous waters. During the day, its stoic form serves as a landmark, a fixed point in a world of constant motion. But if you were to approach St. Jude's Point, to make the difficult journey over land or by sea to its rocky base, you would find something deeply unsettling. The path leading to the heavy oak door is overgrown. The windows of the adjacent keeper's cottage are dark and vacant. There are no signs of life. No footprints in the damp soil, no wisp of smoke from a chimney, no sound of a human voice carried on the wind.
The only sounds are the cry of gull, the hiss of the wind, and the eternal roar of the surf.
Because for more than 3 decades, no one has lived here. No one climbs the winding stairs to light the lamp. No one polishes the great lens or keeps watch through the long stormy nights. The lighthouse is empty. And yet it works. This is the paradox of St. Jude's Point. It is a ghost, but a ghost with a purpose. A machine that carries on its vital duty long after its human operators have departed. How is this possible? The answer lies not in folklore or sea tales, but in a quiet revolution of technology, hidden within these century-old stone walls. The story of this lighthouse is the story of a transition, a bridge between 2 worlds. The world of oil lamps, logbooks, and unwavering human dedication, and the world of solar panels, microchips, and remote diagnostics. To understand the lighthouse of today, we must first peel back the layers of its operation. The heart of any lighthouse is its light, its unique signature that tells mariners not just that there is a light, but which light it is. For generations, this required a colossal intricate Fresnel lens, a masterpiece of glass and brass, slowly rotating on a bath of mercury, with a keeper tending to a fiery oil or kerosene lamp at its center. That entire massive apparatus is gone from St. Jude's Point. In its place is something that looks deceptively simple. A modern, compact beacon, an array of high-intensity light-emitting diodes, or LEDs. It is far smaller, vastly more energy efficient, and requires almost no maintenance. It can burn for 50,000 hours or more before needing replacement. The intricate, sweeping rotation is also a thing of the past. The light achieves its characteristic flash pattern, 2 white flashes every 15 seconds, through precise, computer-controlled timing. The electronics simply turn the powerful LEDs on and off in the exact sequence required. Powering this brilliant light in such an isolated location presents its own challenge. The old keepers would have hauled barrels of oil or coal up these cliffs. Today, the lighthouse generates its own electricity. On the south-facing side of the old keeper's cottage roof, almost invisible from the sea, are rows of dark photovoltaic solar panels. On the rare clear days in this part of the world, they silently drink in the sunlight, converting it into electrical energy. This energy is stored in a large bank of high-capacity batteries housed in what was once the cottage's cellar, a cool, dry space perfect for preserving their lifespan. This system is designed for autonomy. It can store enough power to keep the light flashing and all systems running for weeks of continuous cloud, fog, and storm, a common occurrence on this coast. But what if the storms last longer? What if a series of dark winter weeks deplete the batteries? The engineers who designed this automated system planned for that contingency. Tucked away in a small soundproofed outbuilding is a diesel generator. It sits dormant, a silent guardian for the silent guardian. If the battery charge drops below a critical threshold, perhaps 20%, the system automatically triggers the generator. It starts up, running just long enough to recharge the batteries to a safe level before shutting down again. Its fuel tank is large enough to sustain the lighthouse through an entire winter with no sun at all, an unlikely but not impossible scenario. This multi-layered redundancy is the key to its reliability. Solar is the primary, batteries are the secondary, and the generator is the final, ultimate backup. The light, however, is only one part of the equation. In this region, the greatest danger to shipping is not always the dark of night, but the thick, disorienting fog that can roll in from the sea without warning, blanketing the coastline and reducing visibility to near zero. In these conditions, a light is useless. For this, the lighthouse needs its voice.
The mournful, deep-throated bellow of a foghorn.
In the past, a keeper would have had to make the judgment call, to fire up the massive compressed air engines to power the horn. Today, the decision is made by a small, sophisticated sensor mounted on the gallery outside the lantern room. This device, a visibility sensor, projects a beam of infrared light over a short distance and measures how much of that light is scattered by water droplets in the air. When the fog density reaches a predetermined level, a signal is sent to the main controller, and the sound begins. It is not the old, air-powered horn. It is a modern electronic emitter, a stack of drivers that produces the same powerful low-frequency tone that can travel for miles over water, a sound scientifically calculated to penetrate the dense, sound-muffling blanket of fog. It will continue its programmed blast, a 5-second sound every minute, until the sensors detect that the air has cleared. It acts without human intervention, a tireless watchman that never sleeps and whose senses are more precise than our own. This automated sentinel is a marvel of modern engineering, a self-sustaining beacon of safety. But these thick stone walls hold more than just wires and circuits. They hold the echoes of a different time, a time when the survival of sailors depended not on a computer chip, but on the unwavering dedication of the lighthouse keepers who once called this isolated rock their home. Their story is etched into the very stones of this tower. The lifeblood of the old lighthouse was not oil or electricity, but routine. A relentless, meticulous, and sacred schedule that governed every hour of the keeper's existence. To step into the keeper's cottage, even in its current empty state, is to feel the phantom imprints of that life. You can almost trace the worn path in the floorboards from the small kitchen to the sitting room, and then to the heavy door that leads to the tower's base. This cottage was not merely a house, it was a life support system. Every item had its place and its purpose, every inch of space was utilized. Canned goods and dried provisions were stored in a pantry, enough to last for months, a fortress against the possibility of supply boats being delayed by weather. Outside, in the small patch of earth sheltered from the worst of the winds, faint ridges in the soil still suggest where a hardy vegetable garden once grew, a small defiant patch of green in a world of gray rock and blue water. The keeper's day began before the sun had risen, while the great light was still performing its nightly duty. The first task after a brief meal was the ascent. 138 winding stone steps, a vertical journey inside the tower's cold, damp cylinder. Each step was worn smooth by the passage of countless feet. At the top, in the lantern room, the real work started. The air would be thick with the smell of burned kerosene and hot metal. The first order of business was to extinguish the lamp, a complex burner that required careful handling. Then came the cleaning. Soot and carbon had to be meticulously wiped away from every part of the mechanism. The wicks had to be trimmed with surgical precision to ensure a clean, bright, and even flame for the coming night. Then came the lens. The magnificent Fresnel lens, the soul of the old lighthouse. It was a beehive of crystal prisms and bullseyes, each piece cut and polished to capture every stray flicker of light from the lamp and focus it into a single powerful beam. It was a work of art, but also a delicate scientific instrument. And it had to be immaculate. The keeper would spend hours each day polishing it. First, with a soft cloth to remove dust and the fine salt spray that inevitably found its way inside. Then with a chamois leather, bringing each glass panel to a perfect gleaming finish. A single greasy fingerprint, a speck of dust, could refract the light, diminishing its power and its reach. For the keeper, this was not drudgery. It was a ritual, an act of communion with a machine that defined their purpose. The work extended far beyond the lantern room. The clockwork rotation mechanism, a marvel of weights and gears similar to a grandfather clock, had to be wound. This involved cranking a heavy handle, hoisting a massive weight up the central column of the tower. As the weight slowly descended throughout the night, its gravitational pull would turn the entire lens assembly at a precise, unvarying speed. The keeper also had to be a painter, constantly fighting the corrosive effects of the salt-laden air with fresh coats of white paint on the tower and gray on the ironwork. They were a mechanic, maintaining the diesel engines that were the precursor to the modern generator, used for power and for the old compressed air foghorn. They were a carpenter, repairing window frames shattered by storm-flung debris, and a medic, tending to their own injuries or illnesses with a well-stocked first aid kit and a steady hand. Communication with the outside world was a tenuous thread. An early radio telephone was installed around 1950, but its signal was often lost in the crackle of atmospheric interference. For the most part, connection came in the form of the monthly supply boat, a welcome sight on the horizon. It brought not just food and fuel, but letters, newspapers, and a fresh human face to speak with. The keepers would record the arrival of these boats, along with weather conditions, passing ships, and maintenance performed, in a thick, leather-bound logbook. These logbooks, now preserved in a national archive, are more than just official records. They are chronicles of solitude. In the neat, cursive script, you can read between the lines. Notes on the behavior of seabirds, descriptions of particularly spectacular sunsets, or the simple stark entry, storm winds at 90 knots, waves overtopping the lower gallery. Light maintained. This unwavering sense of duty, the quiet heroism of ensuring the light never failed, was the defining characteristic of their lives. It was a responsibility that settled deep in the bones, a constant awareness that unseen lives depended on their vigilance, a silent pact made with every sailor navigating these treacherous waters. The era of the lighthouse keeper did not end overnight. It was a slow, creeping twilight that stretched over several decades, beginning in the late 1960s and accelerating through the 70s and 80s. The reasons were pragmatic, born not of a desire to erase a noble profession, but of the relentless march of economics and technology. Maintaining a permanent manned presence at a remote site like St. Jude's Point was incredibly expensive. It required salaries, pensions, costly and often dangerous supply runs, and the constant upkeep of living quarters in one of the world's most hostile environments. Simultaneously, technology was offering a compelling alternative. Automated systems promised greater reliability, lower long-term costs, and a level of precision that even the most dedicated human could not consistently match. The transition was inevitable. The process of automation at St. Jude's Point was an invasion of sorts, albeit a peaceful one. A team of engineers and technicians arrived on a rare calm day, their boat filled with equipment that looked alien against the rustic setting. They brought crates of electronics, coils of cable, solar panels, and the new compact LED beacon. For the last keeper on duty, it must have been a surreal and deeply melancholic experience. To watch these men, with their blueprints and their modern tools, begin the careful, almost surgical disassembly of the world he had so painstakingly maintained. The most heart-wrenching moment was the removal of the great Fresnel lens. It had been assembled in place piece by piece over a century before, and it had to be disassembled in the same manner. Each heavy, curved prism was carefully unbolted, wrapped in protective blankets, and painstakingly lowered down the tower's core. When it was gone, the lantern room felt cavernous and empty, the ghost of a light haunting the vacant space where the magnificent crystal structure had once turned. In its place, the engineers mounted the new beacon. It was a fraction of the size, a clinical-looking object of metal and plastic that seemed to lack all the romance and history of its predecessor. They ran new wiring down the tower, connected the solar panels on the cottage roof, and installed the battery banks in the cellar. The old clockwork mechanism was left in place, a silent, motionless monument to a bygone age, its great weight resting permanently at the bottom of its shaft. The final logbook entry from the last keeper is famously brief. It notes the weather, the date, and the time. And then the simple final sentence: automation complete. Light functioning. The keeper then walked down the 138 steps for the last time, locked the heavy oak door behind him, and departed on the same boat that had brought the engineers. As the boat pulled away from the shore, he would have seen the tower, his home and his life's work, receding into the distance. And that night, for the first time in over 100 years, the light at St. Jude's Point flashed on without a human hand to guide it. But the vigil over St. Jude's Point did not cease, it simply moved. It relocated from the storm-battered rock to a quiet, climate-controlled room hundreds of miles inland, at a regional operations center for the National Lighthouse Authority. Here, a new kind of keeper keeps watch. This keeper is a technician, sitting in front of a bank of computer monitors. On one of these screens is a schematic of the St. Jude's Point Lighthouse, a digital twin that displays a constant stream of data. The technician can see the exact voltage of the battery bank, the current being generated by the solar panels, the operational status of the main LED beacon, and the remaining fuel level in the backup generator. They can see the reading from the visibility sensor, telling them if the automated foghorn is active. Every critical system is monitored in real time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This remote oversight is what truly makes the modern unmanned lighthouse possible. If a fault occurs, an alarm flashes on the screen. Perhaps the primary beacon has failed to light. The technician can, with a few clicks of a mouse, attempt a remote reset of the system. If that doesn't work, the system will have likely already switched to a smaller backup light, ensuring the station never goes completely dark. The technician can then analyze the diagnostic data to understand the problem. Is it a burned-out LED module?
A faux in the power controller?
Based on this information, they can schedule and dispatch a maintenance crew. The crew will arrive knowing exactly what the problem is and carrying the precise replacement parts needed. This eliminates guesswork and ensures repairs are swift and efficient. The silent, empty tower is, in reality, in constant communication, whispering its status across the miles, a digital pulse that has replaced the keeper's handwritten log. It is a new form of vigilance, less romantic perhaps, but in its own way, just as dedicated. Despite the flawless remote monitoring, the physical world remains stubbornly real. Technology can fail, structures can degrade, and the relentless assault of the North Atlantic takes its toll. And so, several times a year, St. Jude's Point receives visitors. They are not tourists or historians, but a small, specialized maintenance crew. Their arrival is as planned and precise as the light's own flash pattern. They come by a sturdy workboat, or on days when the sea is too violent, by helicopter, a noisy modern dragonfly setting down on a small concrete pad built for this exact purpose. Their visit begins with the sound of a key turning in the heavy lock of the main tower door. The sound echoes in the profound silence within. When the door swings open, it does not reveal a home, but a machine housing. The air inside is cold still and carries a unique scent, a combination of old damp stone, the faint metallic tang of ozone from the electronics, and the ever-present smell of the sea. There are no personal effects, no signs of life, only the hum of a ventilation fan somewhere in the darkness. The crew's first actions are methodical. They bring in their cases of diagnostic equipment, tools, and any necessary replacement parts. They are not here to reminisce, they are here to work. Their checklist is extensive. They begin in the cellar, which now resembles a server room. Here, they check the health of each individual battery cell, measure the integrity of the connections, and clean the terminals of any corrosion. They then move to the small outbuilding housing the diesel generator. Even if it hasn't run in months, it must be ready. They test the fuel lines, run the engine for a short period, and ensure its automatic startup function is responsive. Back in the keeper's old cottage, they do not linger in the empty rooms. They are focused on the control panels mounted on the walls, checking the wiring that snakes through the old structure, ensuring the solar charge controllers are functioning optimally. The ascent up the tower is a different experience from that of the old keepers. The crew's heavy work boots thud on the same worn steps, but their purpose is different. They are not climbing to tend a flame, but to service a circuit. They carry laptops and multimeters, not polishing cloths. Halfway up, they might pause at a small window, looking out at the churning sea, the only reminder of the wild world outside the stone tube. In the lantern room, the change is most stark. The empty space, where the magnificent lens once sat, is dominated by the modern utilitarian beacon. The crew will clean the outer glass of the lantern room, removing the thick layer of salt that builds up, and inspect the seals for any leaks. They will plug a laptop directly into the beacon itself, running a deep diagnostic that goes far beyond what the remote system can do, checking the health of each individual LED and the integrity of its internal power supply. As they work, they are surrounded by the slow, inexorable evidence of nature's siege. On the north side of the tower, a thick carpet of green and black lichen thrives in the perpetual dampness. Seabirds have built messy nests in the sheltered eaves of the cottage roof, their raucous cries the only voices the lighthouse hears for months on end. Rust bleeds in long orange streaks from any piece of non-galvanized iron that was overlooked in the last round of painting. The concrete of the jetty is being slowly worn away by the ceaseless motion of the waves, its edges softened and cracked. The crew's job is to push back against this decay, to maintain the integrity of the machine and its housing. They are fighting a war of attrition, one they can never truly win, but one they cannot afford to lose. Their work ensures the Silent Sentinel will stand for another season, its automated heart beating strong against the encroachment of both time and tide. The existence of an automated lighthouse like St. Jude's Point raises a profound question: what has been lost, and what has been gained? The gain is undeniable and is measured in metrics of efficiency and safety. The modern LED beacon is brighter, more reliable, and has a more sharply defined beam than the most perfectly tended kerosene lamp ever could. The automated foghorn reacts to changing conditions faster than human ever could, activating the moment visibility drops, not a moment later. The costs are lower, and the risk to human life, the very real danger that keepers faced in storms or during supply runs, has been completely eliminated. From a purely functional perspective, the automated lighthouse is superior in every quantifiable way. It is a perfect machine for its purpose, an unwavering servant of maritime safety. But the loss is less tangible, harder to quantify, yet just as real. What has been lost is the human element, the story. The lighthouse was more than just a navigational aid. It was a symbol of human presence and endurance in the wildest of places. The steady, warm glow from a keeper's cottage window was a sign of life, a small spark of humanity holding back the immense, impersonal darkness of the ocean and the night. For a sailor on a storm-tossed deck, seeing the lighthouse beam was one thing, but knowing a person was up there, keeping that light for them, was something else entirely. It was a connection, a shared humanity in the face of nature's power. That connection is now gone. The light is still there, but the soul behind it has been replaced by a circuit board. The very culture surrounding lighthouses has transformed. They have moved from being active, living workplaces to historical artifacts. We visit them now not to see a keeper at their duties, but to look at a museum piece, a static monument to a past way of life. The Fresnel lens from St. Jude's Point, for example, did not end up on a scrap heap. It was painstakingly restored and is now the centerpiece of a maritime museum 200 miles down the coast. It sits motionless, under soft spotlights, behind a velvet rope. People gaze at its intricate beauty, at the sheer craftsmanship of its construction, and they marvel at it. But it is a jewel removed from its crown. It no longer gathers and focuses a living flame. It is an object of quiet contemplation, its true purpose consigned to history. The stories of the keepers, their solitude, their heroism, their daily routines, are now the stuff of books and documentaries, tales of a lost world. This transition reflects a broader shift in our relationship with the sea. The age of sail and early steam was an era of intimacy with the ocean, an often brutal intimacy. Mariners hugged the coastlines, their navigation dependent on landmarks, soundings, and lights. The lighthouse was a critical node in this system, a fixed point of certainty in a world of variables. Today, a supertanker or a modern container ship navigates not by looking out of a window, but by looking at a screen. Its position is determined to within a few feet by a constellation of satellites in orbit thousands of miles above the Earth. The Global Positioning System, or GPS, has become the primary tool of navigation. Its silent, invisible signals provide a level of accuracy and reliability that makes visual aids like lighthouses seem almost archaic. So why does St. Jude's Point still function? Why do we continue to maintain these automated sentinels all over the world when a more advanced technology exists? The answer is redundancy. The sea remains a dangerous and unpredictable place, and technology, no matter how sophisticated, can fail. GPS signals can be disrupted, whether by solar flares, equipment malfunction, or even deliberate interference. In such a scenario, when the digital screens go blank, the sailors will once again look out of the bridge window, searching for a landmark, a familiar coastline, a light. And in that moment, the steady rhythmic flash of St. Jude's Point becomes, once again, the most important thing in the world. It is the ultimate backup, the analog failsafe in a digital age. It stands as a silent acknowledgement that for all our technological prowess, we should never place all our trust in a single fallible system. It is a belt and suspenders approach to safety, a lesson learned over centuries of hard experience at sea. The empty tower is not obsolete, it is simply waiting, a patient guardian ready for the day it is needed most.